Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today my guest is Suzy Prudden. Suzy Prudden is New York Times best-selling author. She has been quoted by so many people, including Oprah, and everybody knows Oprah. And Oprah says, in order to heal your relationship with your body, the answers are all in Suzy Prudden's Change Your Mind, Change Your Body. Love to learn your body is your instrument. Now, I want to welcome to my show Suzy Prudden.
Hi there. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, you know, Suzy, you're a person who motivates, you inspire, you energize, and you empower people. You're one of the 21st century's Merlin mind mentor par excellence. Now, I love that, par excellence. Now, let's just talk about that, par excellence. Why is Suzy Prudden considered the absolutely most wonderful person who gives people the inspiration and the kind of motivation to be empowered?
I see people in their highest. I automatically see people in their highest, and that's how I hold them.
Now,
and
go ahead.
Most of the time, there are people that I see in their lowest, and those people I don't hang out with. But the people that I work with and my friends, I see them in their highest. I see who they are that they don't even know who they are, and I tell them.
Right.
And I don't hold back. Actually, I don't hold back either way. If I see something in somebody that is not okay, I'll tell them that too. Mm-hmm. And I'm extremely intuitive. I'm a phenomenal coach. I started my first company when I was 22 in 1965.
Wow.
And so I've been working with people and coaching them in some way for over 50 years. And now I have a new project. I have a publishing project, and I have a directory, and I keep reinventing myself. At 72, a lot of people sort of hang up the towel, so to speak, and kick back and say, okay, now what? Well, I don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Suzy,
and so I just keep reinventing myself.
Yeah. Now, reinventing yourself, that must be difficult because you're 72, and I hate to say this, I'm not quite there, but those of us who are baby boomers, it's not easy to reinvent yourself because people, if you want to get a job or you want to do something like volunteer, you're not always accepted because of your age. Don't you agree?
No, not for me. Not for me. It doesn't work that way for me. First of all, I don't care. If someone doesn't like me, that's their problem, not mine. Mm-hmm. And I would never go for a job at this point in my life. I've had the last serious job that I had was when I was 22, and I got fired, and I decided at that point I was never going to work for anybody again. So my then husband and I, in the summertime, decided to go from New York City and spend the summer in Massachusetts, where I had been to boarding school. So we said, okay, so how can we do this? I was getting unemployment. He was in school. Mm-hmm. And we were living on $44 a week.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. You could do that then. And so we opened up an art gallery in Lenox, and we rented a barn. Friends of ours had a guest house. We rented a barn. We got all the art on consignment. We spent the summer in Massachusetts. We made about $3,000 for the summer selling art. And when we came back to New York, we lived in Greenwich Village at the time, we decided that we should have a baby. And he went back to school, and I opened up a fitness school. And
now, where did that come from? Yeah, well,
my mother is the nation's foremost fitness authority, Bonnie Prudden, and she started the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. And so I grew up in the house of fitness, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So when it came time to starting a business, it made perfect sense that I would start teaching exercise. I asked my mother if I could use her name. She said yes. So I changed my name to Suzy Prudden.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my born name. And my husband and I lived in a 5-flight walk-up in Greenwich Village. I think my students got in shape just climbing up to my apartment.
Yeah.
But
I could identify with that.
Yes, and then we moved to the Upper West Side, and then my son was born, and then I taught him exercises, and I taught women's exercises in a little studio on Broadway. And somebody said, "Do you teach toddlers?" And my son was a toddler at the time. I said, "No, but my son is a toddler. I teach him." She said, "Would you create a class?" I said, "Yes." That's my operative word, is yes. Say yes and then figure it out. And so she was going to bring the kids. I charged them $10 for the hour. Mm-hmm. The hour lasted 20 minutes. These were 2-year-olds. And I had never done it before. I called my mother, and I said, "What do I do?" She said, "Keep them busy." And so that's what I did. And then it grew to be the biggest fitness school in New York City. And people thought I was crazy in the beginning. Why should you have a school for toddlers? Remember, this is 1968 now. Mm-hmm. And Mommy and Me didn't exist, and Gymboree didn't exist, and all those programs didn't exist. My mother had a program at the Y, and I had a program. And eventually the school started calling me and saying, "What are you doing?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Teaching exercise." And they said, "No, what are you doing?" And I told them, "Teaching exercise." And she said, "Why?" They would ask me. Well, they would tell me, "The children that come from your school at the age of 3 are more socialized. They love learning. They're excited. They're well-behaved. They interact with each other. Give it a new project. They jump at it. Why is that?" And I said, "Well, my attitude is I always help them become successful.
Now, wait
no matter what."
No, wait a minute, just a second, because now there are lots of schools, lots of preschools, lots of kindergartens, many schools. Now, you said that you had a lot of success with the kids. You must have been doing something special, because kids are not easy to work with, and they don't always like the person who is their teacher. There was something in the way you explained what you do that is a little different. So tell our audience a little bit about what you did that made these kids so interested in you.
I loved them.
Ah.
And they knew it. And I wanted them successful. So no matter how difficult something was for a child of 2 or 15 months or 3, I loved them. And I showered them with love, and I played with them. And my mother said, "Keep them busy." It's interesting. A 2-year-old has a very short attention span. Now, interesting, and look, most adults have a very short attention span these days too. So with a 2-year-old, you have to change an exercise every 15 to 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I did that. I kept their interest. I played with them. I sang with them. I made faces with them. I had them make faces with me. I gave them an experience of joy and excitement.
Wow.
And that's what yeah. And interestingly, I still do today, not with kids, but with adults, because I coach adults today, and not in fitness, but in business. And I help people who are stuck get excited about what they do so that they can become more successful.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to define, when you use the word joy, use the word happiness. How do you define that?
That is a very good question. There is a feeling that we have that is not truly explainable, but it's as if our whole being comes alive. And it's almost we can feel every cell in our body smile. And it happens when you fall in love. It happens when you get an exciting part in a play if you're an actor. It happens when you get a raise. It happens when the person you love looks at you and says, "I love you." It happens when you get a hug from someone dear to you. It's just a cellular feeling.
Right.
And so that's what I do.
Yeah. Now, when you do that, are the people who find that joy and find the happiness that they want, do they, can it last? And if it can, is there something that they should be doing that makes it last?
That's another very good question. I'm going to say something that sounds a little bit hoity-toity, but if they do what I tell them, yes. And if they don't, no. And it's funny because I have clients, I got not mad at a client, but I finally told a client the other day, stop talking. And she kind of stopped, and I said, you are arguing for your limitations. Stop it. Mm-hmm. Stop it, stop it, stop it. You are this, and I told her the brilliance, et cetera. And I said, but you keep finding reasons why you're not okay. You are okay. Right now, you're okay. So from now on, you are not allowed to argue for your limitations. And there's always a yes, but in there. And it's funny because I say, forget the yes, but. You're not allowed to argue for your limitations. From now on, you're perfect. Even when you have egg all over your face, you fall flat on the floor, flat on your face, you make a zillion mistakes, you're still wonderful, period. Now, I have a story about myself where I was a very famous person when I was in fitness. I had my own TV show on NBC. Mm-hmm. I did all the network talk shows. I was on Oprah. I did all of that. 8 months after Oprah, I was homeless. I made some really stupid mistakes. And that experience really shamed me, and I lost all self-respect, and it was a really tough experience. I didn't sleep in my car. Luckily, I had fabulous places to go because I was a famous person, even though I had no money. Mm-hmm. And but it taught me a lot. It taught me humility, and it taught me to love myself regardless of my situation. And so I can now talk to people about the same thing.
Right.
And in reinventing myself, I had to reinvent myself then because I had totally messed up my life.
Yeah.
It when you say, isn't it difficult? I don't know because I just did it.
I understand.
I didn't look at it. Is this easy or difficult? I reinvented myself 14 months ago by creating a whole new business. I've been coaching for 50 years, and my sister and I were working on a book, mm-hmm. and we changed the title from Suzy Prudden's Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book to Your Amazing Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book. And after my ego got over the fact that we took my name off it, I looked at my sister. I said, this is $1 million business. And since then, we've opened up a publishing company, Itty Bitty Publishing, and we have 128 authors so far, and we are publishing small books. They're like dummy books, only in dummy books are 350 pages that you have to read with a yellow highlighter. Itty Bitty books are the yellow highlight.
I see. Now, this is a very wonderful thing that you're doing, that you can kind of inspire people and make them kind of empower them, as we said before. So the itty bitty, let's talk about the itty bitty. Explain to our audience what that is and how it has an influence on people.
People don't like to read today, don't have time. And the old school talks about tell your story. And people don't have time for story right now.
Right.
And they just don't have time nor interest. Why should I listen to somebody's story for 20 minutes about how they were born under a house and they had this failure and that failure and this failure and that failure? And I mean, I've got a gazillion failures. So what? But I've got information. So I tell my authors, I don't want your story. I want your information.
Right.
And so each itty-bitty book is packed, only 35 pages, packed with information and no story. So if someone wants to learn about how to slow down the aging process, we have a book. If someone wants to learn about cannabis, we have a book. If someone wants to learn about sales, we have a book. So we have topical books that are very, very important today, that are short, easy to read, and packed with information. That's what I do for my reader. Mm-hmm. For my author, I take that book and I help them create a business out of it. So I can take an itty-bitty book and help the author turn it into a 7-figure business. That's what I do. Now, that is totally different from what I did as a fitness expert. But I'll tell you, the experiences that I've had from being a fitness expert to be a body-mind pioneer, to being a hypnotherapist, to being a coach, has led me to the place now where I can work with people and help. My sister and I are partners, and she does the editing, and I do the coaching. And we can take our authors and help them create big businesses and help them give their audiences the information that they need so that everybody wins.
Now, you said everybody wins. Okay, that's very obvious because your passion and the way in which you do things indicates to me, at least, that you just give your all and you know and you understand what people need. But here's the thing, Suzy. We live in a society, a technical society, and as you said before, people don't read. They don't play the way they used to in terms of just being outside in nature and enjoying themselves that way. All they know is how to use their computer, their cell phone, all of these things. Now, with that said, what do you think about the fact that we are in this kind of society, and how do you get over it? You know, in other words, how do you get the people whom you coach to really just be who they are and don't rely on all of these technical things?
They have to rely on the technical things. That's the way we live today. I mean, I sent you my bio earlier. I'm working on somebody else's computer because mine is at the computer doctor, and I couldn't send you what I needed to send you the way I normally do because I don't know how to work this other person's computer. That's why I sent it to you in the email form. But we have to rely on this stuff because this is where we are in the information age. We are in the digital age. We cannot go back. Yeah. We can take vacations, but we cannot go back. I'm going to Bali to speak in the fall. I will take a few days and get off the grid while I'm in Bali because I just don't want to be on the grid while I'm there. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's a truly extraordinary country, and I don't want to have to check in with my email every day, so I won't. But I'll let people know I'm out of the country for 2 weeks. Right. And then I'll go visit nature. But while I'm here in Los Angeles, I rely on my computer, I rely on my cell phone, and I rely on it. I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is actually I go to the bathroom, I feed the cat, I make the coffee, I check my email. That's my routine. Yeah. And then I have to be very careful that I don't get sucked into Facebook because that's what people have to watch out for is getting sucked into the media. So you have to give yourself a timer. When I talk to my clients, I say, give yourself a timer. From 9 to 10, you're on the computer. At 10 o'clock, you're off.
Yeah. So you kind of set a standard for how people should use all of these technical tools. Now, let's just move on and talk a little bit about the business, your business. And would you tell our audience, you said that you just moved from being a fitness person to all of a sudden being a publisher. So,
well, no, it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way.
Okay, tell our audience.
I ran my school in New York City until 1983. I divorced my husband in 81. I sold my school in 83. And basically at the age of 40, I retired. I did my eat, pray, love thing, only I didn't eat. And I prayed and I loved, and I spent a whole bunch of years doing that and looking for who Suzy Prudden was because I didn't know at the time. I'm only really learning about her right now. I spent, most of my life trying to figure out who this being is. So I left the fitness world in 1983. And yes, I wrote a couple of other fitness books after that, but mostly I started studying the mind. So I went from fitness to the mind. And then I started creating programs for body-mind technology because I happened to be a genius. And they all worked. And then I created workshops all over the world. And I just, I would make something up and then I would do it. And my attitude is, and my son was funny, he was here the other day, I was telling him a new project that I have, and he couldn't understand it. And he said, Mom, just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And that's what I tell him. Throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. If it sticks, do it. If it doesn't stick, find something else to do. We don't have to box ourselves in. And we tend to box ourselves in because we get comfortable in a way of being and then don't know how to get out of it. And yet getting out of it could mean the difference between being happy or being miserable.
Mm-hmm. So, Suzy, how would you work with somebody who says, I found my passion? I understand that, for example, a person who wants to be on TV as an anchor of a show, or someone wants to be a sports announcer. What would you say to them, knowing that is such a competitive field, and also... Go ahead.
I wouldn't have a clue. I would not have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell them I don't have a clue. I am not afraid of not knowing. And so when I have a client who asks me a question that I don't have an answer for, I will tell them I don't have an answer for that. And what happens to the client is they have a great deal of respect for me for that. I said, I wouldn't even know where they could go. I live in Los Angeles. It is the most entertainment competitive city in the world.
Sure.
I wouldn't know where to begin. And the other thing is I have no interest in that.
Ah.
So no one would bother asking me that question, and if they did, I said, I don't have a clue.
Yeah, so you wouldn't tell somebody to pursue their passion. Is that true?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
I said I don't know where you should go to follow that dream.
Okay. But you would tell them if they have a passion for something that they should do it, right?
Yes, and I'll give you a case in point. I belong to several masterminds as a participant. And there was one particular mastermind that I belong to. I've been there for 3 years now. It's a great mastermind, and they're wonderful people. One young man, he wants to be an actor. And I said, take improv classes, take commercial classes, take every kind of acting class you can take, and go for it. Mm-hmm. He said, yes, but I have to make money. I said, okay. So he started a business, and he would talk about his business, and there was no life. And then he would talk about acting, and he would come alive. I said, you got to follow the acting. Go to school, go to classes. That's what I would tell somebody. Mm-hmm. Go to commercial classes, go to acting classes, go to improv classes, go to places where you meet people in the business.
Right.
I don't know how to get into the business, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw him recently. I guess it was, where are we now? It was in December. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't been for a while, and he was there. And I said, so what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And this was, for 2 years, he tried not to act because he thought he had to work, quote unquote, with parentheses. And so I said, so what are you doing? He said, I'm acting. Mm-hmm. I said, how are you doing? He said, Suzy, it's wonderful. I'm getting small parts, and I'm beginning to get on stage, and I did exactly what you told me. I went to school, I took classes, and I just stopped trying to make money so that I could make money, and I followed my dream. And I said, is it working? He said, yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's I would do it, but I don't know how to do it.
I hear you. So you don't tell people how to do it, but you do give them the inspiration and the motivation to do things. Is that correct?
Sometimes I'll tell them what to do. It just depends on what they're asking me. I mean, sometimes I say, well, example, a client called me, this is about 6 years ago. She had just started a business. So I told her, join this networking organization, this networking organization, this networking organization, and she was telling you what she was charging. She's a healer, a very good one. Mm-hmm. And I said, you're much too cheap. You have to charge more. And a lot of people argue with me. They can't because. I said, don't do that. And then she reminded me this later on. She said that I said to her, stop being a question mark and be an exclamation mark. Mm-hmm. And so she joined the networking organization. She did exactly what I told her to do, and now she has a 7-figure business.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. No, let's move forward again. And Suzy, you've worked with some of the most famous people. I mean, let's talk about Louise Hay for the moment, and Deepak Chopra and some of the other people you worked with. What was that like?
Well, Louise and I were really good friends in the 80s. We lived very close together. We belonged to the same groups. And she used to come to my house twice a week. We would exercise together. And Louise was the most fun. And I would go to her house and we would hang out. And one night, Louise is about 15 years older than I am. And one night we were sitting in her living room and by the fire after dinner, having a glass of wine. She looked over at me and she said, Suzy, I was in my 40s. She was in her 60s. Mm-hmm. It just gets better.
Ah.
And I knew what she meant, but I couldn't experience what she meant because I was still in my 40s and she was in her 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to my 60s, then I knew what she meant. I mean, I felt what she was feeling when she told me that. It was a great moment.
So what did you mean? I mean, you said it, she said it gets better. What did she mean by that?
Life gets better.
In what way?
Well, as a wise woman, you're smarter. You're more comfortable with who you are. At least that's her experience and my experience. A lot of people don't have that experience. But she was really telling me on some level, keep being who you are, Suzy, and your life will just get better. And she was right.
Mm-hmm. Suzy, that's a very important subject because I know that if you have a positive attitude and you see yourself in a kind of confident way, and you kind of develop your self-esteem as you get older, that it has an impact on you, and maybe it even cures some of your disease. Do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. If you're constantly focused on all the bad stuff, here's my attitude. You always get to be right. So what do you want to be right about? Mm-hmm. You can be right that you can be sick and miserable, or you can be right that you can be healthy and happy. You can be right. Does that mean you'll never get a cold? No. Does that mean you'll never get some kind of disease? No. But you're going through it will be better than someone who focuses on how miserable they are. Mm-hmm. Miserable people get to have miserable lives. I choose not to be miserable. I do not have good days every day. Mm-hmm. Some days I have crappy days, and I will say, I am grumpy today, mm-hmm. and I'm grumpy. Right. And then people kind of, we are emotional beings, and it's very important for us to acknowledge all of our emotions, but you don't have to live in misery.
Right.
No. Mm-hmm. And if you choose to, it's a choice.
Right.
It's always a choice. When I'm in a bad mood, I know it, and I can say, okay, I'm just going to move through this bad mood so that I can get out of it. Mm-hmm. I don't try and stop it because you can't.
Right.
You just go through it and get out of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And don't let other people put their nonsense on you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If someone says something to me that is unkind and unjust to me about me, I simply look at them and say, that is your perception and has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
go ahead.
It's interesting, and I don't allow that kind of thing in my life. Mm-hmm. And the mind, and this is very important, the subconscious mind has no sense of humor. The subconscious mind takes everything as real. Mm-hmm. And so when someone is talking to someone else, even about someone else, and you overhear it and it's negative, your subconscious mind will take it as a self-judgment.
Yes.
That's why I don't like to listen to stories that there was someone talking about at lunch at a workshop that I was at recently, mm-hmm. and it was very negative. I said, could you change that subject, please? And someone else was about to tell a negative story. You notice that people who are talking negative stories tend to outdo each other?
Yeah, interesting.
And I say, yeah. Let's get one. I've got a worse one. I've got a worse one. I don't want to talk about those. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear. And I was about to leave the room when I said, can you stop this nonsense about your divorce? Because the whole table, she was a very loud voice, was listening. She said, I didn't realize I was talking to the whole table. I said, you are, and we don't want to hear it.
Right.
So you don't have to have negative people in your life. You can get rid of them. And if someone is sarcastic, that's not sarcasm. That's not funny. That's really mean, because the subconscious mind does not have an ability to filter it as sarcasm. So you have to be very, very careful how you speak and how you think. Mm-hmm. And I don't watch the news. I don't have a television.
Oh.
Why would I want to watch that kind of stuff?
Exactly. And television does, unfortunately, bring some of the most horrible things to light. You see people killing one another, and even the music today for the kids. I mean, look what they're listening to. They're listening to rap with dirty words and very violent things.
It's very, very scary. I mean, it's very unfortunate, because it does train the brain to be okay with that. It trains the brain. The brain becomes entrained. And so that's why you have so much violence going on right now. Actually, we've always had violence. It's just that we hear about it faster now.
Sure. I mean, we're a global world. You can hear anything you want from all over the world, and a lot of the things that you hear are not so good. Now, Suzy, you just mentioned one word which I thought was a terrific word. You talked about sense of humor, having a good sense of humor. How important is it to have, even if you're, it's a very interesting thing. If you take a look at some of the people around, you notice that they all seem a little gloomy, and yet there are some people who just make the most out of some bad situations, and doesn't a sense of having a good sense of humor make all the difference?
Yes. Yes, it's a good a prerequisite to friendship with me is having a good sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean I test people, but if I'm not laughing at some point in a conversation, it's like, why am I with this person?
Right.
And especially in relationship, when you're with a significant other, you got to have a good sense of humor. My last boyfriend made me laugh so hard. I mean, the two of us would laugh so hard that we would get stomach aches. We had so much fun.
Isn't that great?
And we're still friends, and we still make each other laugh. And you have to have humor, intelligence, and daring, and I guess the thing is, have fun with being who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end our show.
I want people to know about Itty Bitty Publishing.
Absolutely.
Because it's a phenomenal way for them to get their message out. So if there's anybody listening who wants to find out more about being able to publish a book about what you're passionate about, what your business is about, go to publishing.com and just write in. It says, if you want to write a book, give me your name and your number and your email, and we will call you to discuss it, because it's a wonderful way for people, any person, to get their message out and create a six-figure business, sometimes seven-figure business from it if they want to. We also have a directory that's free where they can put their information up, and we send them leads. And the other thing is we have a thing on our site called one-page stories. They can tell us a story, their information, and we can send them leads for their businesses. It's an amazing site. It's my new business. I'm very excited about it, and I would like everybody to be able to do for them what I've been able to do for myself.
Well, I think you've been an amazing guest, and you've given people such good advice. And I love the fact that you have such a great sense of humor, and you're willing to tell some of the stories that you've kind of experienced. So, Suzy Prudden, come back to the Susan Brender Show. You're a wonderful guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.